Good morning. How's everybody doing? Amazing. Just before we start, I'd ask you to just turn to the person next to you or turn to the person opposite you and just look them in the eye. I know it's going to be a bit awkward. Now, once you've made eye contact, repeat after me, as you're looking at them. If it wasn't for you, I'll be the most beautiful person in the room. What did they say? Amazing. So I want to start off by saying thank you. Thank you so much. To you leaders, to you as teachers, I wanted to say thank you. The reason why I'm saying thank you, you're probably wondering, why is this young, handsome man out saying thank you to you this morning? It's only 9 o'clock, what do we do? The reason why I'm saying thank you is for who you are and what you do. You love on so many young people. You're responsible for so many lives. You've impacted so many lives. You've served the masses. You've provided so many solutions to them. You've sacrificed time. You've even treated some of these young people as if they were your own children. For some of you, you may be mothers and fathers, but you're also treating these young people as they're your children as well. So I want to say thank you, because if it wasn't for teachers like yourselves, if it wasn't for leaders like yourself, I wouldn't be here today. I had the privilege of seeing one of my teachers last week. As you heard, I'm an insurance advisor, so I was doing a business expo, and one of my teachers actually came to the business expo last week. And for a lot of teachers, it's very hard to get in contact with the teachers because, as you know, we only know them by second name basis. So as I saw her last week, I was so ecstatic, and I said, thank you so much. The same message I'm telling you, thank you. Because she was able to see the man that she poured into. She was able to see the man that she nurtured over time. So the reason why I'm saying thank you is because of who you are and what you do. Today I want to talk about empowering your students and how do we empower the next generation so that we can raise attainment grades in a healthy way. But before I do, I want to share a few slides that represent not just myself, but these represent some of your children in your classrooms. These represent some of your children in your trust. This is Adam Stewart, age 12. And one of my very first mentors put me on stage because he saw something in me. And for some of you leaders, you would see the children that have, in fact, every single child has a gift. Every single child has a purpose. But you would have saw someone like Adam, maybe the outspoken person, maybe the vibrant person. But for my mentor, he saw I had the gift of speaking, the gift of communication. And he wanted to nurture that. Now, these are my family. This represents not just my family. If I'm showing you this picture, that means you're also a part of the family now. So welcome to my family. But this represents 4 different generations. And these are the generations that you've impacted. Whether that be from my grandparents to my parents, my mother here, whether that be to my siblings or to the next generation, the future, my nieces and nephews. Because, as I said, you went from this boy, and because of family, because of teachers and leaders like yourself, I didn't see myself doing this, but my mentor saw this way before I could see this. That's me empowering people in my community. And then this is me in India and Pakistan with the same mentor that had empowered and saw the little boy here. And I just want to take you through a bit of my journey. 7, 14, 21. You're probably wondering, what do these numbers mean? You're probably even trying to calculate it. It doesn't add up to anything. But what they do, this is a sum. This sums up the pivotal points in my life. At age 7, I came face to face with a knife. I was threatened at the age of 7. By 14, I was excluded from my secondary school. And by 21, I now stand before you as an insurance advisor. I've had the opportunity to travel across 3 different continents, across Asia, Africa, and parts of Europe as well. Going to inspire tens of thousands of Gen Z and just empower them to ensure that they can not just see their current circumstances, but to ensure them and let them know that their current circumstances don't define them. But I want to get a bit deeper into this. Because, journey with me. Let me take you back to 2010. For a lot of you, 2010 would have been an exciting year. It would have been an amazing year where the world was in anticipation, where the world was gathered around their TVs, or for some of you, you may even been in the stadium. It was a 2010 FIFA World Cup, and it was in South Africa. England said, "It's coming home, it's coming, football's coming." But did it come home? It actually went to Spain. But for a young man in Southeast London, 2010 would have been the year that changed everything for him. Because he came face to face with death. And I just want to bring you back to the story. In 2010, I had won a bike, and this wasn't just any bike. Out of all the schools in the UK, the borough of Croydon was chosen. Out of all the schools in Croydon, my school was chosen, and out of every single class, my name was picked out of that hat, out of hundreds of thousands of young people. And I felt like the gifted person. I felt like the talented, the vibrant young man. And this was the bike I rode every single day. This was one of my talents. This was one of my gifts. But on this day, there was one day I was riding my bike, and what ended up happening was I encountered this young man who was probably double my age at the time. And he asked to ride this bike, and this bike was so precious. This was one of my first gifts I'd ever been given. Beautiful BMX bike. But he asked me to ride the bike, and I said no. And as he snatched the bike from me. And I asked, and I said, look, I need to go home anyway. It's getting late. Because if you're from a Caribbean descent, my parents know that I need to be in a house at a certain time. So I said, look, I need to go home. And he said, look. And he threw the bike down. And as he threw the bike down, there was a scar going right across the bike. And it almost felt as if part of me was scarred at that time. And as I said, I want to go home, he said, all right, you can go home. And he pulled out a knife on me. And he said, I want you to go home, but if you're going home, I want you to bring your mom's phone and your mom's purse. Now, I don't know if he thought I was in my right mind or my wrong mind, but there was no way a 7-year-old boy, especially if I got a Caribbean parent, was going to bring my mom's phone and her purse. But I said, you know what? I'll do it. So I remember going home, bawling my eyes out. And from that day, I was never the vibrant boy that you're seeing today. From that day, I was really insecure. From that day, there was fear that was still embedded in me. Not too long after, the same boy that was threatened with a knife by the age of 14, I want to bring you to my secondary school experience. Every single day, my mum would empower me. She would speak words of affirmation. Leaders like yourself would speak so much words, and they saw the boy here. But at the time, I didn't see that boy. I still saw this boy. He was the first to get attention. I was the first to be in report. And I had untapped potential. But what ended up happening was that by the time I hit 14 years old, I got excluded. And it wasn't from any school. It was a secondary school that my mum was a school governor at. So whereas she's hearing about all these other students who may have been excluded with the head teacher, now she's having to sit down and hear about her son, Adam Stewart, who she's poured into, who from the very first day of school, she said, Adam, you're going to be head boy at this school. I didn't see it at the time, but she did. But I was now getting excluded. And I saw the look of disappointment in her face. She didn't have to say a word. My God, the silence was deafening. And from that day, I vowed I was never going to be the same again. I had to do something to make my mum proud. So due to mentorship, due to leaders like yourself who empowered me, I ended up becoming deputy head boy at that same school I was excluded from. And that's me there. But today I want to talk about raising the bar. Because I understood that if it wasn't, I wouldn't even be standing on the stage today if it wasn't for leaders like yourselves who's helped me to raise the bar. Raising the bar is so important. Raising the bar is going to take a young man from being excluded, or raising the bar is going to allow someone who doesn't see the value in themselves to start to see the real gifts that they have. So how many of us believe it's important to raise the bar? So what does raising the bar really mean? The first one is belief. Our young people have got to believe. They've got to believe in themselves. They've got to believe in their capabilities. And sometimes, unfortunately, they don't get that belief. A lot of young people have heard so many words, whether that be from their environment, whether that be from social media or society, that are looking down on them. They're looking and saying, if you haven't got a certain status, if you're not from a certain area, if you don't have a certain clothing, you're not worth it. They're hearing different stories from their parents who may have not instilled their belief in them. So one thing I really want to let us know is that when it comes to belief, one of the things that really make up a belief system is language. Because I know we've heard the phrase, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never, words will never, words will never. But I believe it's the biggest lie. Because I've never been broken by a stick or a stone, but I can tell you, words have cut me deep. And the words have also uplifted me. So we have to start speaking life to our young people. We have to start empowering them. But then the second thing we need to do is take the action. Because they can believe all they want. They can say as many affirmations as they want. They can talk about what they want to do, but without the action, they're not doing anything. Without the revision, they're not going to do anything. So they have to start putting down the TikTok and start picking up the books. They have to start investing into their mental well-being. And then the third one, they've got to raise their resilience. They've got to become resilient. Because there's going to be so many times where they're hit by so many obstacles. Mocks are right around the corner. I said the big word. Mocks are right around the corner. But for these young people, they may be so invested into their screen time. The average young person spends about 7 hours on their phone on a daily basis. That's a full-time job. They're spending more time on Twitter or on Instagram or TikTok than they are in their books. And I know your teachers are saying the same message, you're hammering on the same message of raising the bar, of being the change that they really want to see, of taking the next step of belief, of raising the action, of raising their resilience. Because when I realized that when you can raise all three, you raise the bar and you actually raise those results. You start to raise their mock grades, and if they can get the great mock grades right now, they're going to get great exam results. And this is the same message of belief, of raising the bar that I speak to my students about, that when I go into schools and I empower young people, I'm constantly hammering the same message. And I know you're all hammering the same message as well, on how do we take the next generation of future leaders? Because you're not just speaking to a Ben in a class or a Benjamin or a Jake or a Jack. You're speaking to future leaders. You're speaking to the generation that can potentially be making the next policies. You're speaking to the next dentists, the next astronauts, the next pilots of the world. So we've got to get them to raise the bar. How many of us understand that it's important to raise the bar? Repeat after me. We've got to raise our belief. We've got to raise our action. And we've got to raise our resilience. And when we do that, we begin to raise our results. So who here has seen the importance of what it means to raise that bar? Is it just myself? And this is the same message that I hammer in and I speak to our young people about when I go into schools and I do keynotes or assemblies. And I talk to them about raising the bar. I talk to them about how it is that they can come from where they are right now to where it is that they desire to go. If you believe that this message is the message that our generation needs to see, feel free to scan the QR code. And I'm happy to go into your schools, into your colleges. I speak to Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, and Key Stage 5. And tell them how it is that they can start to raise the bar. How it is that they can begin to raise their level of belief, raise their level of action, and raise their resilience. Thank you so much. Before I end, I want to end with the same way I started, by saying thank you. Thank you so much for who you are and for what you do. Because if it wasn't for leaders like yourself, speakers like me wouldn't exist. Thank you so much, and have a great day. So we have about 5 minutes for questions. Does anyone want to ask any questions?
Hi, thank you. That was really great and really inspiring. Can I ask you, you alluded to your mum a lot, which is great. I can see her looking really proud out there. Was there any one particular teacher that had a specific impact or had in your school?
100%. One of my first teachers that really, and even when I went back to the school early in the year, and his name was Mr. Hart. He saw the year 9 Adam, and he would always say, Adam, you're full of potential. And at the time, I was in set 3 across all grades. At the time, my grades were really poor. But he saw that Adam, I was going to get the 6s, the 7s across my subjects, and he would constantly hammer in the message of belief. He would constantly hammer in the message of, look, Adam, I'm going to bring mentors in, and he even brought mentors that would inspire me to this day. He brought in a speaker. He had different students come out and lead the school for a day, and these mentors would really empower me. And he told me, Adam, you're going to be a millionaire. I've even got a poster of what he said to me, of the certificate that he gave me. So it's teachers like yourself, it's leaders like yourself that are really hammering in the message for this next generation. And that's really it stayed with me to this day. I'm 21 now, and I remember conversations I had when I was 14 years old. So it might not seem like it's going in, but the message is truly going in. Thank you. Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the relationship between that sense of self-belief? Can you tell me a little bit about the relationship between your sense of self-belief and, because of course, other people believing you is one thing, but it's got to hit home. It's got to start covering your own belief. And how that interacts with your sense of belonging when you are getting the detentions, when you are getting those other messages, when you're going down, making those other decisions, and when people are telling you those other messages of sanction, of small exclusions along the way. Can you talk about the interaction between sort of, behaviour and those messages and your self-belief?
Yes. I think similar to what you said is that everybody can believe in you, but you have to believe in yourself. And for me, it first started with one change in my environment. So sometimes you have to get out of the school. Sometimes you have to get out of your current environment to see that, look, you're so much more than your environment. And for me, that meant going to central London and doing an apprenticeship in Aon to start to see that, Adam, you can start to do these things, or booking insight days and getting myself out of that. Another thing was the language. So yes, parents or leaders could say, Adam, you can do it. But until I started changing the words I was listening to, because sometimes we have this negative self-talk. The average person has 70,000 thoughts on a daily basis. 75% of those are negative. So I had to start, when I started understanding the importance of language, I started changing the audios I was listening to. I stopped listening to certain songs, and I started listening to personal development tapes, the Jim Rohns, the Les Browns, the people that are the greats who I look up to today. So it first had to start with my language, and when I start to see that, over time, my beliefs started to change. But it doesn't happen overnight. It's a progressing journey, and every single day I'm trying to raise that bar. Thank you. Anyone else? No. Thank you so much. My name is Adam Stewart, and I hope you've enjoyed this morning.